Hey YouTube, Alex here. In today's video, I thought I'd give you 5 things that you're going to have to adjust to if you become a digital nomad or an expat. First thing, and this is specifically relevant to Southeast Asia, are the heat and the humidity. I'm used to heat and humidity having grown up in the southern US, but you may be from a place that does not deal with that. Like if you're in the Southwest, you're in the Mountain West, you're on the West Coast, you may not be accustomed to dealing with a lot of heat and humidity. You may feel that it's overwhelming at times. I know some guys run up really high electric bills in the particular hot and humid months just trying to stay cool. Some people also find themselves spending a lot of time in air-conditioned shopping malls during the day, drinking a lot of smoothies and ice-cold drinks from the local 7-Eleven. Depending on what you're used to, it may be difficult for you to adjust to these different weather patterns, especially if you're coming from a really cold place. This is something that you want to be prepared for because it really, I think, catches some people off guard. It even caught me off guard coming to Bangkok in June. I thought I was used to hot and humid. I had never spent the month of June in Southeast Asia, and it was really hot and humid. You may have come here on vacation during winter months here, which are cool and dry, and you may get a wrong impression that it's like that year-round. If you commit to a long-term stay, you might be really thrown off guard if you're coming here planning to stay year-round and not accustomed to dealing with that. Even though you've been to this place, even though you've enjoyed yourself on vacation, actually being here year-round is a different conversation, a different feeling entirely. Number 2 is food. For me, it's not as much of a major adjustment. I grew up Asian American, but depending on where you're from, you may not be used to the food that they serve throughout Southeast Asia. You may not be accustomed to a lot of rice-heavy dishes or dishes with certain types of oils or sauces or flavors, favoring certain types of protein over others. This may be a major adjustment for you. In Latin America, I found the food more often to be comparable to what I'm used to having in the United States. Coming to Asia, the food is just not the same. It doesn't bother me. I love Thai food. I am a fan of food in all of the surrounding countries. Even some places that some people may have a suboptimal opinion about the food in that place, I actually enjoy it. There's dishes that I enjoy in every country. It does take me some time to dig around and find those, but once I found those, I've got a set of go-tos that I can just cycle through. I understand you may have to try some odd stuff occasionally. Not necessarily even weird, just stuff you don't know what it is. You're not accustomed to that meat or vegetable served that way. You may not be accustomed to the spices that they use to add to it. Local people do tend to understand that foreigners that have never tried their cuisine or may be new to it may not be able to handle intense spice or heat. Not all the time, but often, especially if you're going to a restaurant that caters to Western tastes, it's going to be milder. They're not going to just dump a bunch of chilies on it. Unless you ask for super spicy or Thai heat in Thailand, it's going to be mild. And some countries do have milder flavor profiles than others. I think a lot of people would say that about Colombia. The flavor profiles tend to be milder. I enjoyed the food in Colombia. That's something to be prepared for. Just thinking about what kind of foods you're going to have. Now, you can get Western food here in Thailand. It's often not going to be exactly what you're used to. It may not be cooked the exact way that you're used to. As an aside for food, you may find that the things that you like, Western cuisine, is almost as expensive as what you're used to back home. Or even if it's cheap by what you're used to, it's going to be more expensive than having local dishes. Be prepared to pay for that. If you do prefer to eat Western food all the time, that's going to cost you more. At this point, I'm probably 75% Thai food, 25% Western food. The third point is the traffic. You are going to notice in Southeast Asia that traffic isn't similar to what you're accustomed to in the West. People in some of these Southeast Asian countries drive on the opposite side of the road. Sometimes the speed limits are different. If you're in the mountains or in a beach area, the roads may curve or change a lot. I know in parts of the US, especially people used to the interstate system, you can just drive in a straight line for what seems like hundreds of miles. That may not be the case here. Setting aside the idea of driving yourself, you may struggle to communicate with drivers, whether it be taxi drivers, motorbike taxis, Grab drivers. There is going to be some level of communication barrier there, which I should talk about later in this video. That's something to be mindful of, is that traffic can be a lot more stressful. You may not see exactly perfect sidewalks or infrastructure like what you may be accustomed to in your home country. It's important to just be extra careful in traffic, whether you're a pedestrian or you're a motorbike driver or you're driving a car, especially when you're in control, be very careful, double, triple check, stop at every intersection and look around, look twice. Sometimes there are distracted drivers who aren't paying attention, and they're not necessarily malicious, but they may not see you. That's even more the case at nighttime, where visibility is not going to be as good as during the daytime. That if you're not accustomed to riding a motorbike, I wouldn't recommend it. It can be very dangerous. It's the top way for foreigners to have an unexpected end in Thailand. That's because a lot of foreigners don't know what they're doing. They're not paying attention. They haven't practiced. They think, oh, it's just like a video game, when it's nothing like a video game. It really can be a life or death situation, and I advise you to be especially careful when it comes to motorbikes. A lot of people say it's not a matter of if you're going to have an accident, but when you're going to have an accident. If you do insist on riding, always wear a helmet. Always. This is a timely time to make my fourth point here, and that's noise. You could probably hear the siren behind me. Be prepared to hear a lot of noise that you're not used to hearing. If you're coming from a smaller town, you don't live near a hospital, you're probably not accustomed to hearing sirens often. But if you're in an urban place, because your budget that may be modest even by your small town Western standards is quite high here, then you are going to hear the sounds of civilization, the sounds of infrastructure. You may hear dogs barking. I know that's common in the Philippines. You may also just not be used to the sheer volume of people. I mean, I know in the West, we spend a lot of time at home or on our own. We're not as often spending time around lots of people unless we're part of a church or some other kind of social group or club. And so that's something else when you go out in public and you notice, man, some of these businesses seem a lot more crowded than what they would be back home. People seem to be a lot more talkative. Well, people are more willing to talk to strangers in public here. It's just something I've noticed. It's not an obnoxious way, like back home you run into somebody on the street trying to sell stuff to people passing by or trying to shove a CD in your hand or something like that. Here it's more like people are just more interested in social interaction and more interested in genuine social interaction. You're also going to occasionally hear what are called coal birds, and it's this kind of whistling noise. It's funny, I've had it in a few of my videos. That's a common thing that you'll hear here in northern Thailand. The fifth and final thing that you could potentially experience while you're living overseas are smells that you're not accustomed to. I notice it when I smell somebody grilling with charcoal. It's like a different kind of charcoal than what we have in the West. Let us know down below if you know what kind of charcoal they use here. It's really hot here. Be prepared for that. Be prepared to smell some smells that you wouldn't smell back home. Maybe you go to a market that's selling a lot of dried or fermented foods that have a strong odor. I'm not offended by it. I'm not bothered by it. Bad smells are not one of those things that bothers me as much as some other things, but some of you may be bothered by that. If you're somebody that has trouble resisting delicious food, you may not like the smell of good cooking everywhere. I've definitely stopped at a restaurant because I smelled really good food and thought I have to try that. Whatever that is, I don't know what they're serving in there, but it smells amazing. Bonus thing that people are going to struggle to adjust to in Southeast Asia would be the language barrier. This varies by country. Some countries have more English than others. Philippines, I would rank it as the top alongside Singapore. Singapore and the Philippines and Malaysia, those are the three that have the most English. Be prepared for that. That may take you some adaptation, trying to learn a few words of a local language, having to use the Google Translate, having to find the manager who does have some English. There's actually a really good kebab place near here. They always have a manager on site that speaks English, and anytime a foreigner comes up to order, because of course kebabs are popular among foreigners, that manager will come over and help assist in ordering. Also understand some places that have digital ordering may have an English menu. I know for quite a few restaurants here in Chiang Mai, they have an English menu that pulls up when you try to order via Grab or Food Panda, but some don't. There are some that only serve Thai food that are targeting Thai customers and don't have as much incentive to provide English. So that's something else to look out for. I hope these 5 things and a bonus reason have been helpful for you in understanding what you should be prepared for. These are things that I think everybody will have to adjust to varying degrees. If this content has been helpful, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below, and we'll see you next time.